Welcome to Spitfire SecDev. In this video, I will be introducing you to 3 of the most popular text editors in Linux. By the end of this video, you should be comfortable enough to use any of these 3 text editors in your daily hacking or programming projects. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be opening up the terminal in our Linux Mint machine for the 3 editors that we're going to be going through today, which are Gedit, Nano, and Vim. 2 of those 3 are not installed by default. The first one, Gedit, we can simply install by doing sudo apt-get install gedit. The second one can be installed the same way. And then if we type Nano, it should be installed by default. To get out of Nano, you type Control-X. That should bring you back to the terminal. So now that we have the 3 editors installed, I'm just going to be giving a brief overview of what each one looks like, how to use it, and just some basic functionality. I'm going to be going in order of difficulty. This is the way I perceive the difficulty to be for someone who has never used any of the editors before. So the easiest one to start with is gedit. So we're going to type gedit, and then an optional thing you can type is ampersand. What this ampersand does is it makes it a background process. Gedit is a graphical text editor, so it's going to be opened up separately from our terminal and displayed to us in a separate window. If we wanted to go back and use this terminal, we couldn't until the gedit application has been closed. However, if we append an ampersand to our command, it'll cause that process to go into the background and it'll give us control back of our terminal. So I recommend doing this, and anytime you're running a command from the command line that's going to be opening up a separate window or running a separate application, typically you want to append an ampersand to that command so that it doesn't take away control from the terminal. So I'm in Gedit, and it looks like pretty much like a standard text editor. If you've used anything like Notepad or WordPad, if we wanted to type anything, we start typing. It's pretty easy. You got your menu bar up here, big save button. A couple other things you can configure in here is you can set the tab width if you want to use spaces instead of tabs. You can also specify the file. However, if you have a file saved by the relative extension, so for a Python file, it's going to be .py. For a just a simple text file, it'll be .txt. You can configure it in there, or you can just save it with the correct extension. You also can get things like text wrapping. You can have the line numbers displayed on the left side. You see right here. Other simple features. So I think this one's the easiest because if you've ever used anything like Notepad, you're familiar with this sort of interface. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. If you don't want to learn anything new, at least at the start, and you don't want to use some of the other text editors we're going to be using in a little bit, this is a great place to start, and it'll get you going for the introductory videos. The next 2 that I'm going to show you are purely in the command line. Now there are other graphical applications that have been built for these editors. I know there's like a graphical interface for Vim, and I know a lot of development tools have Vim support, or they do some sort of Vim integration. There's definitely other ways that you can use these types of text editors, but I'm going to be doing the most pure vanilla way of actually interacting with them. And from there, you can branch off whatever direction you want. So the second one is Nano, and this is installed by default on all Linux machines. And this is also a very, in my opinion, pretty simple one to use. However, since it's on the command line, it's a little bit harder. If you want to start editing, you can immediately just start typing. When you want to save, you're going to do Control-X. It'll give you the option to either save, you type yes or no. We're going to do no because we didn't do anything. It'll immediately back out. So Nano is pretty simple as well. There's a man page for it, and you can read through some of the options and how things work. Along with the standard man page for Nano, you also have what's called a RC file. For Nano, it's called the Nano RC file. And that just contains a lot of extra configurations that you can do. As we saw in Gedit, you can do things like set the tab width, you can set line numbers, do text wrapping, stuff like that. If we wanted to do that in Nano, we would have to edit the Nano RC file. So let's man the Nano RC. And this is going to give us a lot of the options that are available. And you can just scroll through here and see all the different types of values that you can set. You also have things like syntax highlighting. You can rebind keys so that shortcuts are triggered by different keys rather than the default. So there's a lot of functionality that can be configured in the Nano RC. Gedit, you're not going to get exposed to a lot beyond what is in the graphical interface. But in Nano, you have a single configuration file where you can define your configuration yourself. So besides Gedit and Nano, the third text editor that I recommend you try out in Linux is called Vim. Vi is the original version of this, but there's a text editor called Vim, which stands for VI Improved, that makes it, in my opinion, a lot easier to use. It's really not that different, but there's just some subtle things that prevent you from having to, reach up and press the escape key a bunch of times, or, there's support for plugins that'll give you a lot more functionality, like syntax highlighting. There's a lot more functionality. So if we type Vim, we're presented with this, and if you wanted to start typing immediately, if you just started mashing different keys, nothing's going to happen. So for Vim, there's a lot of tutorials online. I'm going to link a couple in the description of how to start using this. But of all the 3 editors that I've shown you so far, I definitely recommend Vim for if you want to actually start investing time into Linux and to start getting comfortable using the command line, really just honing in your Linux skills, making them better. I definitely recommend using Vim and forcing yourself to learn it. And the reason I recommend Vim is because the developer community, the people that write Vim plugins, there's a ton of people who are invested in using Vim. And so as new languages come out, as new projects get developed, it doesn't take long for there to be Vim support. Nano and Gedit, they don't have nearly as much support or nearly as many plugins simply because Vim is the just the standard on Linux. To start with Vim, if you just wanted to create a simple text file, you would type I, because that takes you into insert mode. The default mode just allows you to move around and use some other key commands to delete things, copy things, paste things. But to actually insert text and modify text, you have to go into insert mode. And so you type I, then you can type whatever you want. Then once you want to back out of insert mode, you just press the escape key. And then to either save the file or close the file, you prepend your commands, a lot of the commands that you do, with a colon. You'll see the colon pop up down here. And then W is going to be the way you save it. W stands for write. And then Q, which would be to quit. So it's going to write it and it's going to quit. We're not going to save it. We're simply going to do Q. And then it's going to say no write since last change, add exclamation point override. Vim wants us to save it, or it doesn't want us to lose our work, and so it says, hey, you've made changes to this file, you should probably save it before you type Q. Well, we don't want to save it, we're just going to override that, and we're going to quit without saving our changes. There's also a man page for this. So besides the tutorials that I'll link in the description, if you want to do it purely in Linux, there's actually a command called Vim Tutor. What this command does is it walks you through a tutorial that will teach you the basic commands of Vim. So if we run that, we'll get to the tutorial series. So I've never actually used the Vim Tutor before, but it's probably a good place to start. It'll take you step by step and teach you a lot of things that a lot of online tutorials won't teach you. A lot of online tutorials are going to try to condense it down to be as quick and easy to read as possible, but if you're willing to spend the time, definitely go through this. Like they say, it takes about 25 to 30 minutes, depending on how much time you want to experiment with different things. So outside of the man page, like I said, I'll link in the description some resources for you to learn how to use Vim. There's a couple games that you can play. There's some guides you can read. But yeah, I'll definitely link those. Hopefully from what you saw in just my very, very brief introduction to these 3 editors, you can start digging into them, getting more comfortable using them, and seeing which one fits your preference for programming and scripting and just doing whatever you need to do on the command line, or if you use Gedit in your own graphical interface. So before I wrap up this video, I just want to give one more resource that you can use to start learning Vim, and it's this book right here, the Vi and Vim Pocket Guide. The publisher is O'Reilly, and they've done a lot of pocket guides and reference books for certain either languages or just computer stuff in general. So definitely give this book a look if you are more of a book person rather than just the documentation. Is a really concise resource that you can use as you start to learn Vim. So hopefully my video gave you a nice brief introduction to the 3 editors that I think, or at least I know from personal experience, that I use the most. Thanks for watching. This is Spitfire SecDev.